Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the TGIF Business Networking Hangout. I'm your host, Melanie MacDonald, Brand Identity and Outreach Strategy Consultant. We've got a great show for you today. My special guest is John Jurkiewicz, and he's going to be talking about how to avoid setting yourself and your business up for failure, starting small and starting now. Happy Ostara, everybody. It's a beautiful spring day. Hope your day is filled with flowers and sunshine. Let's get started and let everybody introduce themselves down in the peanut gallery. I'm going to go from left to right from what I see on my screen, which is pretty much alphabetical order. So Annie, that means we are going to start with you. Go ahead, Annie.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Annie Cholakian, owner of Silver Moon Bay, which they're hospital gowns. They're boutique designer hospital gowns and accessories. And I have a website, silvermoonbay.com. Great gifts for anybody you might know who's in a nursing home or a home care or hospital. And they're for men and women. Recently, such as after this hangout is over, I'm adding a new product that's going to be posted. And this is a sample of one of them. It's an adult bib or a mealtime protector with a crumb catcher on the bottom. And yeah, it's great for anybody who's has a problem eating, like in a nursing home or something, but I wear mine all the time. I wear it to the drive-thru, and I wear it when I'm getting dressed so I don't get toothpaste all over myself.
Fun. That's great. Thank you, Annie. Thanks for showing us your new product. It's beautiful.
You're welcome.
Lisa, I'm going to go to you next because Brian is still hanging up his background.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and it's a beautiful day here in Colorado. We've had a few days of cloudy rain, and I believe today's the first day of spring, so happy spring, everyone. And my name is Lisa Voncino, and I'm the owner of Sundance Social Media, and I've been in business for 10 years and have seen a lot of the marketing platforms evolve and focus mainly on strategy, marketing, and content writing for small to medium-sized businesses. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Lisa. Great introduction, and I love your shirt. It's very springtimey with all the nice colors. Oh, you're dressed. It's beautiful. Yes. I only see from here up, you know. Okay, Brian.
Yes.
Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brian Rowley. I do websites, website content. I write a couple of blogs. I'm in several networking groups, and I try to help people understand how to go from blog content through social media to get more traffic to their websites, since we all know SEO is dead.
Okay, we'll come back to that statement a little while later. We also have joining us today Nihal, and I'm so very sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, but he likes to stay off cam and off mic, so if you'd like to learn more about him, just go ahead to the event page and click on his profile and you can find information on him there. John, our special guest of the day, John Jurkiewicz. I met John a while back in doing Hangouts, and we met in a Hangout. I think it was in Carrie Rodan's maybe, or maybe I met Carrie in yours. I don't really remember, one of those. But he's just been a gem of information, a wealth of knowledge, and a source of lots of fun and conversation as well. And I'm just so excited to finally have him on the TGIF Business Networking Hangout this morning. I've had several conversations with him about business, and he's just amazing. He's so smart, and he's given me so much great advice already. John, please go ahead and give yourself an even better introduction and tell us a little bit about how you got started doing what you're doing.
Well, Melanie, I'm not sure I could give myself a better introduction than what you gave me, okay? I'm just sitting here thinking my current clients are going to say, oh my gosh, he's going to raise his rates. I started my business 15 years ago, and I guess the easiest way to describe this is I didn't know I was in business for 15 years till people started congratulating me on my 15th-year anniversary in February. And the reason for that is I don't work, I have fun, and people just happen to pay me for it. What I do part of my life. I'm not ashamed to tell people that. You know, we kind of live in a world, in a society where people talk about, well, balancing work and play. This is fun for me. If I couldn't do this 7 days a week, I'd be a grumpy John, and nobody wants that, trust me, especially the people that live with me. But the main reason I started coaching and consulting about 15 years ago is that I saw there were a lot of limitations in what we, you know, call corporate America. There were things I wanted to do. There were initiatives I wanted to start. And when you have an infrastructure around you and above you that says, well, we're making money, if it's not broke, don't fix it, you usually don't get a lot of traction and you don't get a lot of people to listen to you. But what I was able to find out is there were a lot of businesses, especially small businesses. I started work for Philip Morris. It was a Fortune 5 company. We used to kid that we had a spigot on the wall marked money. And anytime you needed anything, you just pulled the spigot, the money came out, and you went out and purchased it. But as I went throughout my career, I started dealing with a lot of smaller businesses. And I started to see that they don't have that luxury. They don't have the cushion. And as time evolved, late 90s, early part of the 21st century, started to see there were many solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people who were going off on their own and saying, hey, I may not have 300 people, but I have a service or I have a product that's going to make this world a better place and an easier place to live in. So that was my motivation. I was telling somebody yesterday, I was coaching before I knew what coaching was. I was coaching back at the turn of the century, and when I say the turn of the century, gosh, that makes me feel old. When the only folks that were really involved in the coaching profession were academians, because the only people that were receiving coaching were people who were the CEOs, the CFOs of large corporations. Well, my goodness, how much that's changed in a 15-year period of time. I now coach private individuals who are looking to start their own business. I coach employees for companies who are really engaged in what they're doing, and their company says, we want to make more of an investment in it. So the world's really changed. I work with small business owners. That's really my passion, because they're really the infrastructure of this company. I don't know if anybody in your panel is old enough to remember Richard Nixon in a positive way, okay? And Richard Nixon coined a term called the silent majority. They were simply the people that got up, went to work every morning, paid their bills, worked hard, came home, spent time with their family, but they were the infrastructure of this country, and they still are. And so I work with those people, and in a little bit when we get into the topic today of your Hangout, Melanie, I'll explain a little more how that works. But that's kind of me in a nutshell. I've worked with all different kinds of businesses. One of my favorites was I helped a microbrewery get started, and was actually standing there when I was doing my sales pitch. The guy threw me a sanding block and said, here, start sanding that table while we talk. And that kind of led to a really wonderful adventure for 3 years. I've just done so many amazing things, and I feel real grateful and blessed that I've been able to do it. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Wow, that's great. That's a lot of history there, John, and well said.
I'm an old guy.
I'd like to remind anybody out there who's viewing that if you'd like to join us inside the Hangout, look in the comments on the event page. It's a few comments down now, but there is a link there that you can use to come and join us inside the broadcast. And if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the event page listing. If you don't want to join us and ask your question live, go ahead and post it on the event page in the comments, and we'll be keeping track of those and taking your questions and answering them. Great. John, Let's
Yeah.
get back now to you and start talking about the topic. Start small and start now. And we had a discussion, and you told me that a lot of businesses set themselves up for failure because they start out from the very beginning when they're just starting their business with these really huge, high-reaching goals that can't really be reached, at least not in that first year. And so they don't realize it because they haven't been in business before. And what it does is it sets them up to fail to reach those goals, which then affects their psychology, and they start feeling negatively about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big problem. So you're very much about start small, start now, set realistic goals, then you're reaching them and building your confidence. So tell us a little more about your start small and start now philosophy. I really love it.
Let's create a baseline, and the baseline is mindset. Okay? You know, you talked about probably 75% of all small business owners in the world today, that they go into business and they find a template somewhere, and the template says you're supposed to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Well, they get down to about C, and they look at their bank balance, and they find out they've run out of resource. They may have all kinds of people sitting out there getting ready to participate in their product and service, and they just don't have the resource to handle it. And, you know, I couldn't have scripted this any better, because in preparing for your show last night, I actually met with a potential client that I had been meeting with for, about 3 or 4 weeks, and they're preparing to start a really unique service. And we sat down last night, and they kind of looked at me and said, well, here's the deal. And let me preface this by saying I have nothing against the Small Business Administration, okay? But they had a meeting with the SBA and the Economic Development Corporation, and they told them this is what you need. And they told them they needed a full-blown website, and they needed all the add-ons that went with this website. Now, let me tell you that this is a solopreneur who's going to be dealing with a customer base initially within 40 miles of her residence. Okay? So I sat down with her and I said, what did they tell you this was going to cost? Well, they didn't. So I took out a legal pad. I'm old school. I took out a legal pad and I said, here's what a domain name's going to cost you. Here's what a WordPress website's going to cost you. By the way, do you know how to do all this? No. Okay, so now you're going to have to pay somebody, and by the way, every time you update, somebody's going to have to go in, and they like to eat as much as I do, so they're going to charge you for that. So what do you think that's going to cost you? And I wrote a figure down on a sheet of paper for her, and her eyes got real wide. She said, John, I can't afford that. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Is that something you need or something you want? And she said, well, what do I need? And so I kind of went through a, you're getting started, you're dealing locally, have you developed your LinkedIn page? Well, no. Have you developed a Google Plus page? Well, no. Okay. Said you realize when you use both those platforms, just as an example, they're free. Said, really? I said, now, a person like me will charge you to develop those pages for you, to give you content, so that, you know, we talked a little bit about SEOs a few minutes ago, that when people are doing search engine optimization, they're going to be able to locate you, okay? And so she walked away and she felt a whole lot better. And that's really start small, start now. There's not one template that fits every business owner. And really, if you look at most goal-setting programs, they set you up for failure. Because there's a thing called current reality, and that's where we all live. So, you know, Melanie, I've watched a number of your Hangouts where you have had people on who are very passionate about their health, or are very passionate about the health of the planet, and they encourage people, take advantage of my program, and that's really great. So now I sit back and I look at it, and I think, boy, you're 61 and a half years old. You really need to get on the stick with some of this stuff. Right? And when I start to embark on that journey, my current reality isn't there. Okay? I can't see me eating a plant-based diet 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. It's not my comfort zone. It's not my current reality. But I'm going to try because I respect Melanie. I respect the people she brings on her program. Right? Now, never mind that the people who are talking to me in the Hangout are kind of telling me, you're not going to be able to do this all at once. I don't hear that. What I hear is, you should set a goal to be healthy. Well, suppose I've never been healthy. Suppose all I've eaten is Fritos and fries my entire life. Define
healthy then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay? And now you're asking me, go to the produce section of your grocery store, or go to a farmer's market or a fresh market and start buying nutrients, and I'm going to go, I've got no clue.
Right.
What happens around the 1st of November?
You give up?
Well, we start getting all these emails. It's getting close to the end of the year. Where are you with your goals? Oh, well, hell, I gave up on them the second week in February. Okay. Now you're writing me, Melanie, and you want me to set more goals for myself for the next year. So, I worked with a personal trainer for about 6 months, and she told me the really neat thing about owning a gym is the people who come in January 1, a size 14, and expect to be a size 0 February 1. But we create these programs and we say, now I want you to set goals, and I want you to set long-term goals. If you've never been a size 0, and I include myself in this, if you've never been a size 0, you just don't know what that's like. So where did Start Small and Start Now come from? Actually, I'm going to go back a couple of years to when I decided I wanted to run a 5K. It was something I always wanted to do. Joan and I'd sit on the front porch at night, and I'd watch people run down the street, and I thought, I've always wanted to do that. Well, I was kind of the definition of the joke. I run to the refrigerator, okay? So first thing I did is I found out what equipment I needed, which was a good pair of shoes. Well, once I had those, I'm kind of standing at the end of the driveway, and actually a friend of mine happened to be running past and stopped and says, hey, what's going on? And I told him, and he said, hey, I got a program for you, and it's called Couch to 5K. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, well, it's free on iTunes. Go ahead and download it. And I did, and put it on my old iPod. I still have an old iPod. And what it did is it walked you through 12 weeks of learning to run a 5K. But here's the beauty. The first week, little voice talked to you and said, now when the music starts, I'd like you to jog for 10 seconds. And when the music stops, slow down, catch your breath, and walk. We're going to do that for 90 seconds, and then you're going to run another 10 seconds. Well, I got to tell you, the first 2 days, I was like, holy cow, this is going to be easy. But each successive week, they added a little bit of running time. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I had to repeat a couple of the weeks in the beginning because my stamina just wasn't there. But, I started that on the 1st of May, and lo and behold, on the 27th of September that year, I was standing at a start line with about 700 other people, and I was able to run a 5K. And there was no stress or distress, and I didn't injure myself because it was my current reality. It took me 6 months to get there. I did it in a very small way. Each morning I put my headphones in, and it'd tell me, here's what you're going to do today, John. Oh, I can handle that. Why? Because I did something similar the day before. And that's really where Start Small, Start Now came from. And the beauty of it to Melanie and to all your listeners, you can apply this to any aspect of your life. You want to lose weight? Do you really, or do you want to be healthier?
Right.
Because if you put the right stuff in, okay, and I can just use myself as an example. I just got totally frustrated. I ran 3 5Ks and injured my back, okay, and they have not really been able to run since then. I'm going to run again someday. I mean, either that or they're going to carry me to the morgue. But one of the things that happened when I stopped being that active and started putting weight on, I just got frustrated. I would do the dieting thing, and, you know, I'd take about 8 pounds off in a month and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden one day I thought, well, you know, you're the genius here. Why don't you apply this to your own life? So actually the week of Thanksgiving, I sat down on a Monday morning and said, what's one thing you can do today? And I kind of looked at my diet, and by diet I mean what was going in my mouth, and I said, what's one unhealthy thing you can get rid of today, and what can you replace it with? Well, friends, I have to tell you that if there was an organization called French Fries Anonymous, I would be its leader. Okay, I love French fries. You can bake them, you can fry them, you can put cheese on them, and I know. But I thought, you know what? You'd have French fries with every meal if you. So what if just for today you're not going to have French fries? You're just going to take them out of your diet. And gee, I found out, you know, with a lean piece of meat and some vegetables, I lived. I got up the next morning. That success said to me, okay, what can you do today? Long story short, between that Monday before Thanksgiving and today, I've lost 17.5 pounds. Now, say, well, gee, just 17.5 pounds, and there comes that mindset again.
No, that's the way to do it, because that's how you keep it off.
But look what people...
Changing lifestyle, not just
exactly.
You know, going on some fad diet.
Exactly. But what does society say, Melanie? Lose it quick. Lose it fast.
Well, you know...
Size 0.
And John, this is what I like about what you're saying, because, and I'm going to summarize a little bit here, two takeaway points that I got out of what you're speaking about so far is planning ahead. When you were doing that 5K, you started training 6 months ahead of time. Not 1 month, not 2 months, but 6 months ahead of time. That allowed you to give yourself the time necessary that it would take to do it and do it correctly, so that you're not injuring yourself by just all of a sudden going from sitting on the couch to, you know, running 5K in 4 weeks, where you're training and you're overtraining. You can pull a muscle, but, you know, working up to it so that it becomes normal for your body to do this sort of thing. So planning enough time to make a change. Don't expect your change to come overnight. Give yourself time to change. And as you were talking about, that also applied in changing your dietary habits. And it's not just all of a sudden, I'm going to cut out everything that's bad, because you're going from, you know, an extreme to another extreme. But one thing at a time. Start small. You know, all you did was cut out French fries for one day, and that was great. And that was a success. It was now a success rather than a failure of, I'm not going to do anything that I shouldn't be doing today, because inevitably, if you have a lot of bad habits, then one of them is going to sneak through. So then it becomes a failure because your goals were too big, too many, too much at one time. That's the takeaways that I got from what you have said so far.
Yeah, and those are, you're spot on. But, you know, let's take it over a little bit to the business side, okay? And let's talk, and I'm going to use Google Hangouts as an example. You know, we have folks like yourself who've been here since the beginning, okay? And could probably do one of these in your sleep, because you've seen everything that can go right and everything that can go wrong, okay? And there's other people. There's the Mia Vosses, Lisa Engels, Carrie Roldan, people like that who really have gravitated towards this, and we see that end success. We don't see all the oopses along the way. And so we look at this stuff and we say, I got to get up to speed because I see where so-and-so is doing this and so-and-so is doing that, and I need to have the best equipment in the world. I started doing Hangouts in December of 2013. I used the camera and the microphone and the speakers that was on my laptop. And later when I started looking at the quality and people started watching what I was doing, I took a step back and I said, okay, if you're serious about doing this, what do you need to do next? Well, I went out and invested $67 on a decent camera. Okay? Then I got a set of headphones, except when you're bald and you sweat, the headphones start falling over your eyes and people think you've escaped from an asylum. So here's the benefit of having 6 grown kids who are all successful. For Christmas this year, they bought me a very nice Blue Yeti microphone for about $200 that, yeah, maybe I didn't need, but you know, Dad, what can we get you for Christmas? Now, if I'd have started there, I'd have spent a whole lot of money and not necessarily known if I was going to be successful in doing Google Hangouts or not. But if I looked at the people who had, I've got to bear in mind, they've been doing this for a couple years. Okay? When you go into your business, take a step back and say, what do your, and this is kind of a little reverse, what do your customers need? I remember when I first started my business, I leased a vehicle, and the car salesperson wanted to lease me a Lexus. This is back in '99 when everybody wasn't driving Lexus. And I kind of laughed, and he said, what's so funny? I said, what would you think if I drove up to your place of business in a Lexus? I can't afford this guy. Well, it's a sign of success, John. Oh, I agree with you, it is. Okay? But how about a Honda? Because my customer base can relate to a Honda. Oh, do I think I deserve to drive a Lexus? Sure. Right. Start small. Start now and then grow that. And those are just a couple examples.
You know, John, it takes me back to when I started out and what you told your client who was being counseled by the SBA that she needs a website, she needs this and she needs that, but her client base was only within 40 miles. Well, when I started out, as anybody who has watched this show for a while knows, I never planned to be a self-employed solopreneur. I planned to work at the place I was working at till I retired, but then I got laid off in the down economy and found myself having to go out there. So I had not, you know, not having planned to be a business person on my own, I'd never put money away to support that. I'd never planned on that. So I was starting with a budget of about $0 and not knowing what the heck I was doing. And I started out just making my profile on Google Plus and using Google Plus as my sort of online place of business and presence. And it actually worked out very well. I mean, I didn't have to send them to a website. I just sent them to my profile on Google Plus where they got as much information as they needed. You know, one of the things I liked about Google Plus is people, unlike with Facebook, they don't have to have an account, they don't have to sign in to see the stuff that I post publicly. And so I was able to put stuff out there that I could send people to and let them see what I was doing online without having to make that investment in a website until I was ready to go ahead and do that. So I think that was really good, valid advice as well. I'm going to let the audience know that we are going to take some questions here. And if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the event listing. And take a look here. I want to say hi to Elaine Cooper. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Coach G. Moore. Thank you for watching and checking in. And anybody else who's in there? Hi to Kat Schreier. She can't watch, but she's going to watch the replay. So hi, Kat. Kat's awesome. She does a series of hangouts on water industry-related issues and water-related issues. So hi, Kat. I don't have any questions, so we'll get right back to John. Actually, before we do that, let me ask, I almost forgot to ask the Peanut Gallery. Do any of you guys down there have any questions? Annie, Brian, Lisa? I'm sure Brian's going to want to say something, so unmute yourself, Brian.
I do, Leilani, when you get back to it.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian, you first, and then we'll go to Annie.
Okay.
Oh, still don't hear you, Brian?
I always have to look for that second mute button. Anyway, you can go to Annie. I'm just listening and following along. I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. Thanks. Annie, go ahead.
Well, I'm at a middle point right now where I've been in business for 10 years. I started out part-time. I had a really good regular job designing clothes, so I wasn't really ready to leave that. And I have a website. I have an e-commerce site because I have a lot of products and people buy them online. Now, I'm at a point where I've been encouraged to make a major investment in my website to get more traffic or whatever. And I'm kind of balking at it because I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money. And I don't know if I need it. I just think I have, like, for instance, the website that I have, I use a host company called Volusion. And they have a bunch of different plans, and I did have them, an expensive plan, but I downgraded it because I just don't need, I figured, well, I don't need that much bandwidth. But, and they made it so that it's mobile friendly. But I had a guy who does mobile sites, and he'll take your site and he'll make it really mobile friendly and stuff like that, but then he wants to get 4% of whatever orders you get on mobile. And but I have to upgrade my plan with my host again. And then I started thinking, is this worth it? What do I really need? Do my customers, who are mostly not young people, they're mostly at least 45, and a lot of them are 75 or 55. Did they really notice that much about my website?
It's a good question. Oh, John, we're not hearing you.
That's an excellent point. I've got 2 mute buttons too, so I had to unmute both of mine, and I forget about the one on my microphone here. That's a real excellent point, and Annie, you must be a mind reader, because part of where I was going to go next was trusting your gut. Okay, you've said you've been in business for 10 years, which means you're successful, right? And you got successful by trusting your gut. And if your gut says right now, I don't know, I'm not saying yes and I'm not saying no, I don't know if this is what I want to do, I'd take a step back and kind of just let the dust settle and see maybe if that possibility or another one opens itself to you.
Oh, okay. I know, for instance, that my checkout page is a problem because it has a little drop-down menu on it that's difficult for people with poor vision to even see that it's there, and then if they have to click on it. And so maybe that's an issue. But as far as the general look of it goes, they say, they being, I don't know, all the millennials out there in the tech world, that if you don't update your site every 4 years, it looks old and out of date. What do you think about that, John?
Well, I think you had.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Your image goes on and off and on and off, and sometimes your voice goes off.
Huh.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, again, and that's a standard answer to what a website is. Every 4 years, I update mine about every 60 days because I do something different than what you do, okay? if I'm a guest on a podcast, I make sure that podcast gets posted on my webpage. If I'm a guest on a Hangout, I've got a section on my webpage now I'm working on. This Hangout will go on my webpage, okay? Because that's my marketing and sales tool. You know, you said something in your initial question. I've dealing with some people that are 75 years old, okay? My mother's in an assisted living facility, in a memory care facility, okay? I want to talk to you about that thing you showed in your introduction. I think my sisters would love that for my mom, okay? But my mom isn't your audience. The caregiver's your audience. So you're right, a 75-year-old person with low visual acuity, they're not going to be clicking on the internet looking for, and forgive me, what I call a bib, okay? I mean, that's, you know, that I think it's cool, but your audience is my sisters. And I think, and Melanie, you can chime in here, or anybody else, I think knowing and understanding your audience is a precursor to what your web presence should be. Because if you're putting it out to the wrong audience, then you're never going to sell anything.
That's very true. And I made one possible mistake. I also sell hospital gowns for labor and delivery. That's a completely different audience. And I tried to market to both of them on my site. I had pictures of, I got some models who were pregnant, and then I got from the older people, well, I can't buy that one. That's for somebody who's pregnant. And then, of course, the younger ones didn't like the ones with the older models because then they thought it's for an old lady. Anyway, but it's just, it can be a little overwhelming for me. And I just was thinking of redoing my site and spending another $4,000 on it, but I don't really want to do that.
Well, you know, Annie, I have a couple of thoughts there, and I really just want to emphasize and re-emphasize what John said. It depends. You know, why are you remodeling your site? Why? When John talks about updating his site, I think he means something a little different than what you mean when you're talking about updating your site. When you're talking about updating your site, you're kind of really talking about redesigning it and
the look of it.
Yeah, coming up with a new site.
I add new products to it all the time, but I don't redo all the graphics.
But you know, the question is, why are you thinking about doing it? Is it just because the person told you, oh, you need to, you know, redo your site? And think about the reasons. Well, did he tell you why? And as John said, who's the audience that you're trying to reach, and what are they going to react to your new site, and how much do they care about how your site looks now versus how you're thinking about changing it to be? Is this change going to enable you to reach your target audience more effectively? Is it going to get your target audience to take that call to action, to make that step, to make that order more readily? So asking yourself questions like that are kind of more important. And also, as a solopreneur, if it does result in a higher order count, a new business being brought in, can you fulfill those orders? Or are you going to have to grow in order to fulfill those orders? And is that kind of growth something that you had planned? Because some people are very happy just being, you know, their own business and having enough business to keep them busy, but not necessarily wanting to hire on more people and growing a company to fulfill higher orders. So there's a lot of questions in there that you want to ask yourself as you're pondering whether or not you want to do your website.
And you know, just as Annie, as I was sitting here listening to you and listening to Melanie, I want your website, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm going to give your website to the chief caregiver in my mom's assisted living facility. Okay, she would be your target audience because she's going to say potentially, "Wow, this stuff is really great. We need to make this available to our residents." Okay, so there's a conduit there between your end line customer and the person and your marketing effort, if that makes sense. Okay?
Yeah.
And see, I ran across the same thing, trust me, okay? What I ran across is I had a lot of very well-intentioned people telling me, oh, well, this is how you need to funnel so you can get conversion and everything else. But really, if you work with me, here's what I found out. You're buying me. You're not buying my service. You're buying me. So I'm getting ready to hit a revision on my webpage Monday or Tuesday morning, and I pulled my bio and put it on the homepage. Okay? Mm-hmm. I want you to know who I am, because it's almost irrelevant what I offer if you don't buy me. Okay? But that's my audience. And you know, I think Melanie said it real succinctly. Who's your audience?
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else, Brian or Lisa?
Well, I have I've worked with some senior centers and that sort of thing, and in terms of, I don't actually create websites, but I do have some experience with them and looking at them and all of that. And I would say, first of all, for this person to want to take a percentage of everything you sell, I think that's what you said. You know, that kind of sounds a little unreasonable to me. And there are some really nice platforms in terms of Squarespace.com, and they're especially for, they have a shopping cart and all that, and they do focus more on creatives, but I found their websites to be very intuitive, whether you create it yourself or whether you want someone to do it for you. So I would say to definitely look around if you are thinking of changing your website. But I think what Melanie said is really important, and that is that really, you know, who is your target market, and do you really need to actually change the website? Maybe you need to change the content of it or make it more visually pleasing.
Right. Well, so you're getting the same advice from everybody, Annie. I think that's, you know, kind of says something there.
Wait, I haven't chimed in yet.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I'm going to give you the same advice. Yeah, I think I've seen your website, and I've seen how it is for you to work on it, and I know you know what you're doing there. So there's a learning curve to any new platform, even something as simple as Squarespace, and I've used half a dozen different website builders. They all have nice features, drag and drop, and they're easy enough to figure out. However, you have one that's working, and you already know how to work with it. So I would say probably you need to look at, this is the toughest question to ask, what makes people click? When you put a new image or you put a new product out there, I think maybe you need to start collecting the statistics or analytics, to use the more computer-based word, on which ones are actually getting the most response, and then let that guide your activities as far as posting new material. Does that make sense? I would hate to see you spend a ton of money where.
Well, what I meant, Brian, was more like this. I have a slideshow on my. I have no intention of leaving Volusion.
Good.
But I have a slideshow on my current site, and some people say, "Oh, you have a slideshow? It's so old-fashioned." So that I can change the content all I want myself. That's not a problem for me. I was thinking of changing especially the homepage and the checkout page, the layouts of it, stuff, and they are on a template. So that's why it's expensive. It can get expensive.
Well, Annie, I invite you to hang out after this hangout is over in the green room for a little bit and discuss this more with our guests who are willing to hang out in the green room and discuss it. But right now it is 9:45, so I do want to get back on topic. No, that's totally cool, because your questions are the topic here. Your questions are going to be the kinds of questions that many of the viewers out there might have, and John's answers are really enlightening and kind of showing about what he does, showing a glimpse of how John works with his clients, the kinds of pointed questions that he asks them, and how he helps them come to the realizations that they come to. So that was great. But I do want to make sure that we have time for everybody to get in any last questions, to get in any final thoughts. And John, I'm going to go back to you because you are the guest of honor, and I want to know, is there anything that we have not gotten to yet today that you really wanted to bring up and wanted to point out to our audience?
Yeah, and this may sound awful self-serving, but again, it's something I've found in 15 years of doing this thing, as I call it. Most small business owners today will profit greatly from working with a coach or mentor who has integrity, honesty, and authenticity. Okay, I kind of kiddingly tell people when I begin working with them, somewhere about halfway through our relationship, you're going to hate me. Okay, because Melanie talked about the pointed questions. Okay, a good coach or a good mentor is going to want you to succeed. Not because here's the thing people don't get. Let's role play for a minute, Annie. Let's say you hire me to work with you. Okay.
Okay.
If you're not successful, am I successful? No. Okay. So what becomes the overwhelming concern? And I will tell you, this is a pet peeve of mine, and it's something I'm real passionate about. There's all kinds of people out there who can give you what I call the get-rich-quick scheme. And then there's those of us who work out there that say, you know what? My success comes from your success, so I'm going to knock myself out. Now, there's hundreds of people out there like me. Melani's a person who shares the same philosophy and the same outlook on things, that we're not going to sell you something and then turn around and run away and say, oh, well, gee, you didn't do what we asked you to do. I think as more and more people become solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and a shout out to my good friend Carrie Roldan, mompreneurs, okay, it's really important that there's somebody there to guide you. And here's why. The Small Business Administration, the Economic Development Corporation, your local state or federal government, they're all living back about the turn of the 20th century, not the 21st century. So that's my kind of parting advice. Find somebody to work with that has your best interest at heart.
Right. Not just sort of a, you know, do what I say you're going to do and you're going to make 6 figures next year. And, you know, so many of those systems that I see, well, in order to do what they're telling you to do, you have to hire a whole team, you have to make all these kinds of investments, you have to do a certain thing that a lot of solopreneurs out there don't have the funds to invest in. You know, you can't hire a team of 10 people if you're just out there by yourself and you're just starting out. You know, maybe a couple of years, but oftentimes not right away. So I think what John says is absolutely true. Find somebody with integrity and who is more about listening to you and what your needs are and helping you discover what your needs are and a plan that works for you than they are about themselves. And do what I say, and this is just the one system. Because not everybody fits in that round hole. You know, not everybody fits in that same mold. And so you want to customize, you want to get custom advice, custom help that is all about your business and making things work for you. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. And I like something that John said that I thought was really right on and interesting, was about SEO being dead.
No, I didn't say that. That was Brian.
Oh, was that Brian? Hey, Brian, you are so right, because one thing I will say is I used to spend a ton of money on Google AdWords, and I don't do it anymore. And now I'm getting all my traffic from being like on this Hangout and having a Google Plus business page and putting stuff on Pinterest.
Yeah. Pinterest is great for people selling goods, I think. You know,
Yep.
you can make a virtual storefront there.
Mhm.
John?
I think Pinterest is perfect for people who sell any kind of clothing item, anything you can wear that has color or sparkles, jewelry, for instance.
Mhm.
Anything you're selling that people put on themselves and they're going to see, that's
'Cause
Pinterest.
they go there to shop. People go to the Pinterest to shop. John, let me ask you, where if people want to get in touch with you, where do they get in touch with you? If they want to hear about your programs, where do you want to send them? Where do you want them to contact you?
Oh boy, well, you can contact my website, and I'll post it in the event page when we're done. Is JurkiewiczConsulting.com. I know Jurkiewicz is a mouthful, but I'll post it in the event page. You can find me through Google+. You can find me through LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. If you live in Kentucky, you can find me in Owensboro. You can. I'm available there. I'll also post my email address. One of the things I learned from doing a podcast a few months ago, was I gave my phone number out, and somebody in New Zealand called me at 1:30 in the morning. And they didn't realize that it was 1:30 in the morning here. So, like, if you want to talk on the phone and you send me an email, I'll give you my phone number. I don't have a problem doing that. It's just that when you put it out there on the World Wide Web, you get all kinds of interesting phone calls.
Right. And as you said, you use today's technology. You are not stuck in the 20th century, so location doesn't matter. People don't have to be in Owensboro, Kentucky, to be your client.
Exactly.
And to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about your Hangouts, John, because you are a fabulous Hangout host, and you have great Hangouts with great guests.
I'm blushing here. I had the Grolls and Tremlins absolutely brought my weekly hangout for this week to its knees, and I'm not quite sure why. But I've got a guest coming back next week. Actually, we're doing two hangouts next week. We're doing one hopefully Monday evening with Lena Georgiev, and Lena is a fantastic, amazing life coach who I met through LinkedIn, and she asked me, hey, will you look at my website and tell me if you think it's cool or not? And kind of did a search for her on YouTube, and she had posted 2 or 3 videos. She's a person who went through a tremendous change in her life from a health perspective about 5 years ago, got herself very healthy by using a process very similar to Start Small, Start Now, and has remained healthy, and in her case, the massive amount of weight she lost, close to 100 pounds, has stayed off for close to 6 years.
Wow,
and
wonderful.
The other thing very unique about Lena is that she's an accountant who became a life coach, and you don't see that real often. Okay?
No, you don't.
Thursday, really excited. Miss Karen Fitzgerald is going to be with me, and Karen is the host of an international podcast called Coffee and Coaching with Karen. And I happened to be a guest of hers about 2 months ago, talking about very similar things we talked about today. And she invited me to be part of a project that she's going to launch next Thursday on my Hangout, and I'm really excited about it, and I can't really talk about what the project is because...
Oh, you're teasing us now.
Yeah, I am. I mean, she's doing a soft launch, and then there's going to be the great fanfare. I love Karen half to death. Just super person. And so those are 2 of the Hangouts I've got coming up in the next week or so.
And do you do Hangouts weekly or regularly?
Yes, I try to. And why I say I try to, because the gods of Google very often go, you're not doing one tonight, John. How come? Well, because we just said you're not. Okay? 2 weeks ago, I got thrown out of my own Hangout twice. They told me I wasn't authorized to be there. Right? So we had a situation.
They're working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes right now, and so that's, until they're done, we'll kind of just expect?
I usually do my hangouts at 10 a.m. on Thursdays, and that's 10 a.m. Central Time. I know a lot of my audience is on the West Coast, and so they usually catch the replay on YouTube. But and if you would like to be a guest on my hangout and you feel you've got something very passionate you want to share with my audience, hit me up. Okay, I'll be more than glad to give you an opportunity. One of my first guesting appearance was on Melani's Hangout, and she was my very first guest when I started doing the interview-based Hangouts. And I have a real soft spot. She gave me an opportunity. I have a real soft spot for people who've never been on a Hangout before. I'll bring them on, and I'll say, don't worry about it, okay? It's not the end of the world. Get on there, get comfortable. So that's what I got going on.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I love having people on, and I don't care how many followers you have. I care about what kind of information you have to bring to the mix and what the discussion is and what you can add to it. So I will reiterate what John says, and if you are a business-to-business person, your business is serving other businesses, this is a B2B-oriented networking show, please hit me up if you'd like to come in and be on a hangout. And you are welcome. This is an interview show, but it's also a networking hangout. I welcome anybody to come in and join us who would like to join us in what I call the peanut gallery, what other people refer to as the film strip. But like you saw today with Annie and Brian and Lisa coming in and sharing their thoughts and asking questions. And we're very newbie friendly, so I always open the green room a half hour early, sometimes even earlier, so you can come in early, get a little help getting set up, learn how to turn on your lower third and all that good stuff. And if you're interested, just contact me here on Google Plus or send me an email on Gmail and let me know. But Google Plus is the best way to reach me. I will get those messages first. Let me know what you do. And my only requirement is that you know what a window is and you know what a tab is. Because I've had so many people come on and like, I can't find my Hangout window. So know what a window is, know what a tab is. That's all you need to know. Okay. Lisa, before we go, let me ask you if you're still there. You have a really fabulous group on Facebook that's a social media group. Are you still there, Lisa, with us? She might be at AFK. Okay. Well, we'll ask her.
I need to tell myself.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your group on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I finally got rid of that. Didn't take it anymore. But when I was there, I was really impressed by what you were doing.
Well, I'm not sure exactly which group you're referring to, but I do belong to, I can think of two different groups that deal more with, you know, the business of social media and social marketing. And
I think there was one that was having Q&A sessions and live sessions.
Okay, now I remember, the Social Solutions Collective. That's what we're talking about, right, okay. And yeah, we were doing these Q&As and all that, and unfortunately, the woman that was running that stopped. She pretty much closed the Social Solutions Collective probably about 6 months ago. So unfortunately, that resource is no longer there. So that's, yeah.
Oh, well, that was fabulous. So
yeah, I enjoyed.
I'm not there anymore. I'm not up on the news.
Right, right.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Come back again for the next TGIF Business Networking Hangout, which is going to be on Friday, April 3rd. And my special guest is going to be Dr. Alan Chong. He's also known as the Spine Coach. Dr. Alan Chong is a health coach. He is a chiropractor, and he runs a series of hangouts himself that talks all about health and how health affects small business people and solopreneurs in their business. After all, we are often sitting on our duffs in front of the computer for a large part of the day. So Dr. Alan Chong has a lot of great information about how we can incorporate healthy exercises, healthy habits to keep our spines in alignment and give us more energy with which to greet our workday. So again, that's going to be on Friday, April 3rd. Dr. Alan Chong, the Spine Coach. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a happy Ostara, a happy, great spring equinox day. May flowers and sunshine fill your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.